Objection: the Bible condones slavery. This is a very common objection used by people who have taken isolated verses in the Bible and arrived at the conclusion that the Bible accepts and supports slavery. The issue is that the type of slavery they have in their minds is very different from the slavery that's mentioned in the Bible. Most think of slavery in terms of how it was in the United States several centuries ago. We can all agree that this type of slavery is completely cruel and inhumane. And yet, that's how we all think about it when the topic of slavery is mentioned. What most do not know is that the slaves that are mentioned in multiple passages throughout the Old Testament of the Bible were treated very differently. In fact, most of them were slaves by choice, not forcefully made slaves. Back in that time, it was very common for people to enter into indentured servitude in order to work off debts, and those people were referred to as slaves. Once the debt was worked off, the slaves could go free. Some slaves developed such good relationships with their masters that they would stay and work for the remainder of their lives, even once their debt was paid in full. Let's examine what the Bible really says about slavery. In Exodus 21:16, it says, "Anyone who kidnaps someone is to be put to death, whether the victim has been sold or is still in the kidnapper's possession." In Deuteronomy 23:15-16, it says, "If a slave has taken refuge with you, do not hand them over to their master. Let them live among you wherever they like, and in whatever town they choose. Do not oppress them." Doesn't sound like either of those key passages support slavery. In fact, I would argue that slavery was never a part of God's plan from the beginning, and it wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for man's rebellion. Another controversial set of verses is found in Colossians 3. It says, "Slaves, obey your earthly masters in everything, and do it, not only when their eye is on you and to curry their favor, but with sincerity of heart and reverence for the Lord." Many people twist the meaning of this passage to insinuate that it supports slavery, but the author, Paul, clearly does not support the institution of slavery if you examine his writings in totality. In Galatians 3:28, he says, "There is neither Jew nor Gentile, neither slave nor free, nor is there male and female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus." So what is Paul trying to communicate in Colossians then? What he's saying is that we should do everything as if unto the Lord, regardless of our circumstances. He's encouraging a Christ-like behavior and attitude from slaves despite their situation. He's not condoning slavery by any means. Unfortunately, slaves have existed all throughout history, and long before the U.S. With that said, Jews and Christians specifically were instructed not to participate in this institution, with the exception of indentured servitude. Let's not forget that it was Christians who led the fight to abolish slavery in America and England centuries ago, and Christians have also taken the lead to help eradicate slavery today, which exists in many forms and, probably most cruelly, the sex slave trade. Does the Bible condone slavery? Absolutely not. In fact, it supports the opposite. The Bible teaches us to love our neighbors as we love ourselves. How could we possibly do that if we enslave them?